There's a lot of difficulties and struggles that come with having a rare disease in the home and in the family. And I think with neurofibromatosis, there's an additional component with it because it's a condition that nobody's ever heard of. If I say autism, people know what I'm talking about. If I say cystic fibrosis or diabetes even, people know. When I say Caden has NF, they're like, what? What is that? There's a lot of, I think, additional aspects, and so the mental toll that takes on, I think, us as an entire family at times can be drowning.
Most individuals with NF1 or NF2 or schwannomatosis have some form of generalized anxiety disorder, some form of major depressive disorder. My research in my lab is showing 45% of adults with NF1 have some form of generalized anxiety. It is a problem, which is unfortunately the silent killer of a lot of cases with NF.
Mental health, like anything else, is like a wave. There's times where it's going really great and times where it isn't. And I think right now we're in this transitional period into adulthood, and there's a lot of fear. It's really hard to silence that. And so with Caden, anytime there is a new symptom, it's what does this mean? What is this gonna look like? Is this NF related? Could it turn to cancer? Because it manifests in so many different ways, it's hard to nail down what does Caden's future really hold for him. For me, the anxiety piece is the toughest. For Caden, it's the social piece. And so that social anxiety and that aspects of like, I have to be an adult, so I'm gonna be in this workforce world and I have to actually talk and interact with people or answer to a boss and that sort of thing. I think that erases a lot for Caden.
How stigma can come into that and how individuals with NF see themselves, it is so problematic and so barely untouched.
I don't think you can describe the feeling that you have when you have a child that's diagnosed with something that it could be life-threatening. We totally had the same situation of two parents dealing with a diagnosis and two very different responses. When Caden was first diagnosed, for me, it was a relief. We finally have a name for it. For my husband, it was, why do you have to take him to all these specialists? Like, let him be a kid, he's gonna grow out of it kind of aspect, which did cause conflict.
It's so important for the family to cope and deal together. There's a high divorce rate with individual family members who have NF. It's not just that they don't want to be together. So the partners are dealing at different stages of coping and they just can't process it.
It weighs on you, and I think that weight, how some people can kind of pick up and march forward versus the people that kind of get buried under that weight. And it's neither response is bad, or they're all alike in dignity, and we have to deal with it how we have to deal with it. However, I definitely know it created conflict within us for a while because I was the primary one taking Caden to all the appointments. It's heavy information, having to be told that his optic nerve isn't as pink and we need to make sure it's not atrophying, so we're gonna run this next test. And being the one that has to physically hold Caden down as he's getting another IV. And it's, those draining aspects then to come home to be like, where are you in this? And so after a lot of conflict and some marital therapy, we kind of had to learn how to be on board.
One of the things that you education can do is help in providing a vacation or finding, some way just to disengage from what the current mishigash or the current issues so that they can just focus on them as a family. That's amazing.
Caden's Be Happy trip came at the most perfect time for us, and I couldn't be more grateful actually for you guys, because it's one of those aspects where it came when we really needed it. To understand Caden, like he's a gentle, loving, very kind. He really wants to make you happy and please you. And so we go into middle school and he just all of a sudden, behaviors were shifting. He was becoming mean, aggressive, and sometimes violent. And it was becoming so bizarre, and we were really starting to question, where's this coming from? Why is this changing? And we know that like puberty comes in and things can look different for everybody, but this was so out of character. And so with the help of an advocate, a lawyer, the state getting involved, we discovered that the school was wildly mistreating Caden. And that's where these like behaviors were developing. And it was in the midst of that whole middle school nightmare that you guys came in and said, hey, we'd like to offer you guys a Be Happy trip. He's always wanted to go to Florida. We really got to the opportunity to not just take a break from the harsh medical aspects of things, as his tumors at that point in time were growing and things were changing, but also that middle school nightmare that we were living at that moment. He was and still is such a thrill seeker that he got to ride like some of the world's scariest roller coasters, and it got to be about him in a way that was for him, by him, the things I like to do, and a break away from that mess. It came at the most important time, I think, in our lives, and it was something that I think we all so much treasure. Caden's always been really big into picture books, and you guys sent us this picture book. Every show and tell, every time people would ask like, Caden, what was your favorite vacation? It was always his Be Happy trip. And even at his graduation party that we had just recently last May, he brought it, and it was part of like the display, because I think it just was one of those defining moments for him. I think it was like, I'm going to survive this, and I have something to look forward to. Shortly after that trip, we finally got him out of that middle school, and we got him into the right hands. And I think it was a pivotal turning point in his middle school that just meant everything. It's hard to put into words. It's a feeling in your chest, like it just meant the world.
The idea of having that entire nuclear family in a different location, that can change someone's spirits, even for a little bit. But that little bit is so rewarding to see a kid smile. I'm sorry, there is nothing better than a kid smiling. To see your own child smiling, that's a win.